Alan was 66, a builder, a grandfather, the kind of man who didn't believe in sick days, who thought a doctor's visit was something you only did if a bone was sticking out. One afternoon, standing in his kitchen, he felt his right hand go numb. 10 minutes of clumsiness as he stirred his tea. No pain, no panic. It passed so quickly he barely mentioned it to his wife. 4 days later, he collapsed. Couldn't speak, couldn't move his right side. That numb hand, that was his only warning. Now you might be thinking, sure, but he was in his 60s. I'm still younger. I'm fine. Let me tell you about Mark. He was 57. He didn't smoke, didn't drink, played golf twice a week. One morning while buttoning his shirt, his fingers just wouldn't obey. It lasted 3 minutes. He laughed it off, told himself he must be tired. 3 days later, he woke up unable to form a single word. The part of his brain that controlled language had been destroyed. What's the link between Alan and Mark? Both men had a TIA, a transient ischemic attack, a mini-stroke, and both ignored it. In Alan's case, the damage was to his movement. In Mark's, it was to his speech. But the outcome was the same. A life cut into before and after by a single moment they didn't take seriously. And here's the part that should make you sit up. A TIA can happen to anyone. Yes, even if you've never touched a cigarette, even if you've never had a drop of alcohol, even if you think of yourself as healthy, it can happen quietly, without fanfare, in the middle of an ordinary day. One moment you're fine. The next, your brain is waving a red flag. The real tragedy? That red flag is also a golden ticket, a chance to stop the big stroke before it hits. Instead of waiting for it to pass and hoping it was just nothing, you could walk into an ER, get the scans, start the medication, and walk back out with your future intact. So as you listen today, I want you to picture this. Alan at his kitchen counter, Mark at his bedroom mirror. Both men standing in the exact moment they could have changed everything. Would you know what to do if it were you? Would you act or would you wait? I'm Dr. KDM, a consultant stroke physician. For over 2 decades, I've worked in emergency rooms, stroke units, and clinics, seeing people in the most critical minutes of their lives. Every week I meet someone like Alan, someone like Mark, people who had one brief chance to stop a stroke before it happened and missed it. Here's the thing. When you've watched enough lives change in seconds, you start to notice patterns. The same excuses, the same hesitation, the same deadly delay. It went away, so I thought it wasn't serious. I didn't want to bother anyone. I figured I'd just sleep it off. And in that space between symptom and action, the clock keeps ticking. That's why I'm here. This isn't just another health lecture. This is a survival guide. Because if you know what to look for and what to do the moment you see it, you can change the ending of your story. Instead of learning about stroke recovery, you could be learning how to keep living the life you have. So today I'm going to show you exactly what a TIA looks like, why it's far more dangerous than it sounds, and how acting fast can mean the difference between walking out of the hospital and never walking again. A TIA, or Transient Ischemic Attack, is what many people call a mini-stroke. But there's nothing mini about it. It's the same process as a stroke, a blockage cutting off blood flow to part of the brain. Except this time, the blockage clears on its own within minutes. The symptoms fade. You feel normal again. And that's the trap. It tricks you into thinking the danger is over. Here's the brutal reality. A TIA is not the end of the story. It's the prologue. Studies show that about 1 in 5 people who have a TIA will go on to have a full stroke within 90 days. And half of those strokes happen in the first 7 days. The first week after a TIA isn't just risky, it's the most dangerous time of all. Think about it this way. A TIA is like smelling smoke in your home. The fire might not be visible yet, but the warning is clear. If you ignore it, the flames will follow. And just like a house fire, the sooner you act, the more you can save. Research backs this up. A large study called Express found that when patients received rapid evaluation and treatment within hours of a TIA, their 90-day stroke risk dropped from over 10% to just 2%. That's an 80% reduction in risk, simply by moving fast. Every hour matters. Every test, every pill, every piece of advice you get in that short window can tilt the odds in your favor. So when that strange weakness, slurred speech, or blurred vision disappears, don't celebrate just yet. That's not your body healing itself. That's your body warning you that the clock is ticking. Instead of waiting to see if it happens again, you should be in a hospital chair, getting your brain and blood vessels checked. Because in the week after a TIA, time isn't just money. Time is brain. Most people are taught the fast test for stroke: face, arms, speech, time. And it's true, those four letters can save lives. But here's the part most people miss. With a TIA, you might get only one of them. That's right. Not all four, not even two. Just one. And that single brief change could be your only warning. F is for face. One side droops when you try to smile. It might look like your mouth just isn't keeping up with the other side. A is for arms. One arm feels weak or numb, or it drifts down when you try to hold both arms up. S is for speech. Words come out slurred, or you can't find the ones you want. You might even say the wrong words without realizing it. T is for time. Time to call emergency services right away, even if the problem vanishes in a minute. Now here's where people go wrong. They think, it's just my arm, my face is fine, it can't be a stroke. Or, I'm speaking fine now, so I must be okay. But a TIA is like a lightning strike. It might hit just one branch of the tree, but the storm is still overhead. Alan only had numbness in his hand. Mark only had clumsy fingers. Both thought it was nothing. Both were wrong. Instead of assuming it's harmless because it's small, think of it as a siren. The smaller the sign, the quieter the siren, but it's still telling you to move. So remember this. With TIA, one sign is enough: one drooping smile, one heavy arm, one jumbled sentence. That's all it takes to warn you that your brain's blood supply just failed, even if only for a few minutes. And if you act on that warning, you may never have to find out what happens next. Not every TIA looks like the textbook version. Some are quieter, sneakier, and far easier to dismiss. These are the ones that catch people off guard, the ones they chalk up to fatigue, low blood sugar, or just one of those days. One of the most overlooked signs is vision changes. You might suddenly lose vision in one eye, as if a curtain dropped over it. Sometimes it's not total darkness, just a dimming or a gray wash over your sight. It can last seconds or minutes, then clear. That's a TIA in the artery feeding your eye and brain. Another hidden warning is balance problems. You're walking down the hallway and suddenly you can't walk straight. You drift to one side, feel dizzy, or need to grab the wall. It's not clumsiness. It's not just age. It's your brain's balance center going without oxygen. Confusion is another. You might be mid-conversation and suddenly not understand what's being said. Or you're in a familiar place but can't quite orient yourself. It's like a mental fog rolls in. And then there's numbness or tingling, especially on one side of the body. A heavy limb, a strange, buzzing sensation in your face, arm, or leg. Let me tell you about Fiona. She was 59, a retired teacher. One morning she sat down with her coffee and the newspaper. As she read, the words stopped making sense. They looked like gibberish, as if the page had been scrambled. She blinked, shook her head, and within 5 minutes the words were clear again. She never told anyone. 3 days later, she had a stroke in the language center of her brain. She still struggles to string together full sentences. That unreadable page? That was her TIA. These hidden symptoms are the reason I tell my patients, if something about your body or mind feels suddenly wrong, even if it's painless, even if it clears up in minutes, don't ignore it. Better to get checked and be told it's nothing than to stay silent and lose the chance to prevent a stroke. The moment you suspect a TIA, the countdown begins. This isn't a wait-and-see situation. This isn't the time to sleep it off or schedule a checkup for next week. It's the time to get to an emergency department. Right now. Why? Because every minute you delay, you give the clot or blockage another chance to return, bigger and more destructive. Research from the Express study showed that rapid treatment after a TIA can cut your risk of a major stroke in the next 90 days by nearly 80%. That's the kind of odds you only get if you move fast. So what happens when you go to the hospital? First, brain imaging, a CT or MRI to confirm there's no bleeding and to check for signs of a recent blockage. Then, a scan of the carotid arteries in your neck, looking for dangerous narrowing. Next, an ECG or a longer-term heart monitor to pick up irregular rhythms like atrial fibrillation. Blood tests follow, checking your cholesterol, blood sugar, and clotting status. The goal is to find out why that TIA happened and fix the problem before it has the chance to cause permanent damage. Sometimes that means starting medication immediately. Aspirin, or a combination of aspirin and clopidogrel to stop clots from forming, statins to stabilize artery plaques, blood pressure medicine to keep the vessels safe, or anticoagulants if an irregular heartbeat is found. And here's the key. All of this only works if you show up. You can't get brain scans at your kitchen table. You can't have a blocked artery cleared from your couch. The most important action you can take after a TIA is the first one. Pick up the phone. Call emergency services. Put yourself in front of a doctor who can act before it's too late. Remember, with a TIA, the symptoms might be gone, but the danger isn't. Acting within hours can mean the difference between a life unchanged and a life forever divided into before and after. Once you're in the hospital and the tests confirm a TIA, the focus shifts to stopping the next one, the one that could leave you with permanent damage. This is where treatment moves fast because the greatest risk is in the first days after your warning. One of the most effective approaches, if started quickly, is dual antiplatelet therapy, a combination of aspirin and clopidogrel. In the CHANCE trial, patients who began this combination within 24 hours of a TIA had a significantly lower risk of another stroke in the next 90 days. The POINT trial confirmed this benefit, showing that early, short-term use reduces recurrence, though it must be balanced against a slightly higher bleeding risk. That's why doctors limit the duration to just a few weeks. Blood pressure control is another key step. High blood pressure is the #1 cause of stroke. Guidelines recommend aiming for less than 130/80 mmHg for most people after a TIA. If your blood pressure is high, medication can start right away. If heart monitoring reveals atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat, you'll likely be started on anticoagulants, which thin the blood and dramatically cut stroke risk in AF patients. And if tests show a severe narrowing in one of your carotid arteries, surgery or stenting may be needed. The timing here is critical. Research shows that operating within 2 weeks of a TIA offers the greatest chance of preventing a future stroke. Wait too long, and the benefits drop sharply. All of these treatments, medication, surgery, lifestyle instructions, have one thing in common. They work best when you get them early. If a TIA is your brain's last warning, this is the point where you either heed it or ignore it. The choice you make in those hours will shape the rest of your life. When people hear about TIA, they often turn to friends, family, or the internet for advice. And while some tips are harmless, others can be downright dangerous if they replace urgent medical care. One example I hear often is vitamin E, specifically a form called tocotrienol. Some people believe taking a high dose at the first sign of a stroke can help prevent it from progressing. Here's the truth. The science doesn't support it. In fact, large analyses have shown that high-dose vitamin E can increase the risk of a bleeding stroke by about 22%. That's the exact opposite of what you want if your brain's blood vessels are already in trouble. The danger isn't just in the supplement itself, it's in the delay. If you stop to take something at home or convince yourself you've treated it with a pill, you lose the critical minutes when doctors could be giving you proven, life-saving treatment. Supplements can have their place, but not in an emergency. Think of it like seeing smoke pouring out of your kitchen and deciding to burn incense to cover the smell. It doesn't matter what you take. If you're having a TIA, the next step is the hospital, not the health food store. So when that sudden weakness, slurred speech, or blurred vision strikes, skip the home remedies and get your brain checked. Because the most powerful stroke prevention tool isn't in a bottle, it's in acting before the damage is done. After a TIA, your body has given you something most stroke patients never get, a second chance. What you do with it will decide whether you stay healthy or face the same danger again. And while medication is important, your daily habits are just as powerful in cutting your risk. First, quit smoking. Smoking damages the lining of your arteries, narrows them, and makes your blood more likely to clot. The good news? The benefits of quitting begin within days, even if you've smoked for decades. Instead of thinking, it's too late, think of how much better your arteries could feel in just a week without smoke. Second, lower your blood pressure. High blood pressure is the single biggest driver of stroke. If you don't know your numbers, get a home monitor. Aim for under 130/80 unless your doctor tells you otherwise. Every point you bring it down takes stress off your brain's delicate vessels. Third, move more. Just 30 minutes of moderate activity, like brisk walking, 5 days a week, can reduce stroke risk by over 20%. You don't have to run marathons. Instead of sitting through another TV episode, take a walk around the block. Your heart, your brain, and your mood will all benefit. Fourth, sleep properly. Loud snoring, gasping at night, or waking up exhausted could mean sleep apnea, a hidden cause of stroke that doubles your risk. Getting it diagnosed and treated can protect both your brain and your heart. Fifth, cut back alcohol. Heavy drinking raises blood pressure and can trigger irregular heart rhythms. If you drink, stick to low-risk amounts or cut it out entirely if your doctor recommends it. Sixth, lose excess weight, especially around the waist. Belly fat drives inflammation, raises blood pressure, and worsens blood sugar control. Even a 5 to 10% weight loss can make a dramatic difference. None of these changes have to be perfect from day one. The point is direction, not perfection. Instead of waiting for the right time to overhaul your life, pick one change and start today. Because the week after your TIA is not just a danger zone, it's also the perfect moment to turn your health around. Your arteries are built and repaired from the food you eat. If you want them soft, flexible, and clear, you need to feed them the right materials. One of the best proven ways to do that is the Mediterranean diet. Not a fad, but a way of eating backed by strong science. In the PREDIM study, people who followed a Mediterranean diet rich in vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, olive oil, nuts, and oily fish had a significantly lower risk of stroke compared to those on a low-fat diet. Think of it as building your blood vessels out of the strongest bricks instead of brittle, crumbling ones. So what does that look like in real life? Breakfast could be oats, topped with fresh berries and a drizzle of olive oil instead of a fried plate heavy with processed meats. Lunch might be a salad loaded with leafy greens, beans, tomatoes, and tuna, dressed with olive oil and lemon instead of bottled, salty dressings. Dinner could swap out a steak for grilled salmon with quinoa and roasted vegetables. It's not about never having your favorites again. It's about tipping the balance toward foods that protect you instead of harm you. Every swap you make is like a deposit in your brain's safety account. Over time, those deposits add up, and when your arteries face stress, they're better prepared to keep the blood flowing where it needs to go. After a TIA, your brain has already shown it's vulnerable. Choosing the Mediterranean way of eating isn't just about living longer, it's about living better with your speech, your movement, and your independence intact. Let's go back to Alan. He didn't smoke. He thought skipping dessert on Sundays was healthy eating. He hadn't seen a doctor in years. His blood pressure was high, his cholesterol borderline. His 10-minute hand numbness was his golden chance. But he waited. Today, Alan uses a wheelchair. His speech is slurred. He needs help to get out of bed. Mark's story isn't much different. He was younger, fitter, and thought his habits protected him. But that morning with the clumsy fingers was his TIA. He laughed it off, certain it was nothing. The stroke that followed took away his ability to speak. Two men, different ages, different lifestyles, the same mistake. They saw the warning and did nothing. And that's the lesson here. Risk isn't about your age, your habits, or how healthy you feel. Risk is about whether you act when your brain calls for help. When it comes to TIA, the smallest sign can be the loudest alarm you'll ever get. The difference between a life unchanged and a life forever altered can come down to whether you take that alarm seriously. Alan and Mark didn't. You still can. So now you know what a TIA is, what it feels like, and why the days after it are so dangerous. You've heard the stories. You've seen how fast life can change. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge? If you've ever had a strange episode, a drooping mouth, a weak arm, words that wouldn't come out right, even if it passed in minutes, don't ignore it. Tell your doctor, get the scans, ask about your stroke risk. Acting now could save you months, years, even decades of independence. And if this video has opened your eyes, share it. Send it to a friend, a sibling, a neighbor, because you never know who's sitting at their kitchen counter, brushing off the same kind of warning Alan had. You never know whose future you might protect. Remember this, the most dangerous stroke is not the one that comes without warning. It's the one you saw coming and chose to ignore. Don't make that mistake.